I handed the divorce petition to the prince yesterday. Guess what he said? He said, "Divorce, Ron Tang. Did you eat too much braised pork last night and let the grease clog up your brain?" Listen to that. Is that something a decent person would say? My name is Ron Tang, a person who transmigrated into a book. I transmigrated into this absurd novel, The Cold-Faced Prince's Fierce Love, and became the Cannon-Fodder princess who shares the same name. The original host was madly in love with Prince Shenli and used every means to marry him, and then what happened? Shenli had a white moonlight in his heart, and marrying her was purely out of helplessness. The original host caused endless trouble and eventually succeeded in getting herself killed, making way for the white moonlight. When I transmigrated, it happened to be half a year after the original host had just married into the prince's mansion. The way Shenli looked at me was even colder than the stone lion at the gate. Alright then, I've had an epiphany. Whoever wants to be the princess consort can have the job. I'm done serving. I just want to be a salted fish, lying flat in peace and quiet, idling away until death. And by the way, I'm waiting for a chance to break up peacefully. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Shenli's white moonlight, Liu Shuai, is said to be returning soon from Jiangnan. I've been planning to hand over the divorce papers as soon as the white moonlight returns, pack up my things, and leave without delay. I'll find a small, picturesque place, buy a little courtyard, raise a local dog, and open a small shop selling snacks. A perfect, lazy retirement life. But this damn plot seems to have gotten stuck. Liu Shuai has been gone for far too long. As for Shenli, his attitude toward me, this figurehead princess, has become increasingly strange. He used to completely ignore me. Now, he occasionally appears in my yard while I'm gnawing on chicken feet. Frowning, he looks at me with the kind of gaze one would use to study a rare species. Ron Tang. My mouth full of chicken feet. I respond vaguely, watching him warily. You. He hesitated, his eyes sweeping over my greasy hands and the chicken feet I had gnawed into a messy state, finally letting out a very soft sigh. Never mind, with that. He turned and left, leaving me utterly bewildered. What a weirdo. It's really rude to disturb someone while they're enjoying chicken feet. You know, one more time, I was fishing by the pond in the garden. Yes, fishing. The koi in the prince's mansion were plump and foolish. Catching them and grilling them was incredibly delicious. I had just cast the line when Shenli's deep voice sounded behind me. What are you doing? It startled me so much I nearly threw the fishing rod into the water. Fishing. I forced a dry laugh. He walked over to my side, watching the koi swimming back and forth in the water, his brows furrowing into a knot again. These are koi bestowed by the emperor. Oh, I nodded. So what? We can't fish for the imperial fish. He choked for a moment, seemingly not expecting me to be so unapologetic. No, TSK, so many rules, I muttered under my breath, reluctantly putting away my fishing rod. Then I'll go to the kitchen to catch a grass carp. Is that allowed? He looked at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. After a long pause, he finally managed to say, "Do as you please." Then, looking as if I had angered him again, he flicked his sleeve and left. I scratched my head. This prince, is he perhaps a bit unwell in the head? Shouldn't he just stay out of sight and out of mind when it comes to a useless princess like me, who's just taking up space? What's he doing hovering around me every single day? Could it be that he's discovered I'm not the original owner of this body? The thought sent a jolt of panic through me, but I quickly dismissed it. Impossible. The original owner was a hopeless romantic with a flair for drama, completely different from my lazy, laid-back self. Even someone as slow-witted as Shenli should be able to sense something different, right? But he never asked. This attitude is quite thought-provoking. Never mind. The first rule of being a salted fish, if you can't figure something out, don't think about it. I continue my career of lying flat, until yesterday, my dowry maid, Chun Ya, rushed in excitedly. Miss, great news. Absolutely wonderful news. Liu Ze is back, Chuanya exclaimed, her little face flushed with excitement. The carriage has already reached the city gate. What? The melon seeds in my hand clattered to the ground. After waiting for nearly a year, the plot point has finally been triggered. My carefree, leisurely life is waving at me. My heart raced. My hands trembled. I immediately spread out the paper and prepared the ink. A letter of separation must be arranged at once. After all, the original owner of this body was the daughter of an official, so she certainly had the literary talent to write a letter of separation. I swiftly wrote it out in one go. The central idea is just one. Your Highness, I no longer love you. Forced affection is not sweet. Let us part on good terms and give each other a way out. You should hurry and pursue your unattainable love. After drying the ink, I looked at this sincere divorce letter and nodded with satisfaction. Chuanya, let's go, miss. Are you really going? Chuanya was a bit afraid. His Highness, what is there to fear? I puffed out my chest. Whether you stick your neck out or pull it back, it's still a single stroke of the blade. For the sake of freedom, charge, clutching the divorce letter. I strode with boldness and vigor toward Shenli's study. At the study door, his personal guard, Shiyang, stood as stiff and unmoving as a wooden stake. Upon seeing me, a rare crack appeared on his perpetually icy, expressionless face. Your Highness, what is this? I need to see the prince. There's an urgent matter to discuss, I said with a serious expression. Shiyang hesitated for a moment but still went in to announce my arrival. Let her in. Shenli's indifferent voice came from inside. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Shenli was sitting behind the desk, reading official documents. Sunlight streamed through the window lattice, falling on his sharply defined profile, his eyelashes impossibly long. TSK, what a fine-looking man. What a pity, not my type. He looked up at me, his gaze lingering on my face for a moment before returning to the document. What's up? His voice was cold. Perfect, just the right tone. I steadied myself, took out the neatly folded divorce letter, and presented it with both hands. Your Highness, please take a look. He set aside the official document, his slender fingers taking the letter, unfolded it. The study was terrifyingly quiet, only the faint rustle of him turning pages could be heard. I could hear my own slightly rapid heartbeat, nervous. I'm a little excited. He read very slowly, word by word. His brows gradually furrowed. The surrounding air seemed to grow colder bit by bit. Finally, he finished reading. He lifted his head, his deep eyes like frozen pools of ice, staring straight at me. Divorce papers. Yes, I tried to keep my voice calm and sincere. Your Highness, I know this marriage was never your wish. Now that Miss Liu has returned to the capital, and the two of you share mutual affection, I truly shouldn't continue occupying the position of princess consort. Why don't we peacefully separate here and now, parting ways with mutual respect, so each may find their own happiness? I had exhausted every polite and proper phrase I could think of. Is this dignified enough? His knuckles turned slightly white as he clutched the divorce agreement, just looking at me like that. His gaze was so sharp it felt like he was trying to dissect me. It made my scalp tingle. Just as I was about to cave under the pressure and say something more, he spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a tone of gritted teeth. Divorce, Wan Tang. Did you eat too much braised pork knuckle last night, and your brain got clogged up with grease? Me, what the heck? Braised pork knuckle, brain clogged up with grease. What is all this about? Your Highness, I tried to get back to the main point. This has nothing to do with pork hocks. I'm being serious. He sneered and stood up. His tall figure approached me with an intimidating presence. Wan Tang. Marrying into the prince's residence was your Wan family's wish. It was you who insisted on coming here with all your crying, making scenes, and threatening suicide. Now you say you want a divorce. And it's done just like that. He walked up to me, so close that I could smell the crisp scent of pine and ink on him. He looked down at me, his gaze cold and heavy. What do you take me for? What do you take this manner for? You think you can just come and go from the vegetable market as you please? I was completely thrown off by his barrage of questions. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Shouldn't he be overjoyed, immediately sign the papers, and happily go pick up his beloved white moonlight? What's with this furious outburst? That's not what I meant. I tried to explain. I just thought it would be better for everyone, not better for this king. He abruptly cut me off, his voice suddenly rising sharply. You startled me. He seemed to realize he had lost his composure, took a deep breath, and suppressed his surging emotions, but his gaze remained frighteningly intense. He waved the divorce agreement in his hand. Then, under my horrified gaze, rip, a crisp tearing sound rang out. The divorce agreement that embodied my hope for freedom was torn in half by him, expressionlessly. 4:15, 8:30, finally turned into a pile of useless paper scraps. He raised his hand, fluttering scraps of paper, like an untimely snow, drifted down onto the polished floor, and drifted down onto my utterly chilled heart. Divorce. He stared at me, enunciating each word with perfect clarity. Ruan Tang, abandon this futile hope, as long as I draw breath. You belong to me in life and in death. Wishing to leave, not unless I breathe my last. Having spoken, he turned away without another glance in my direction and resumed his seat behind the desk. Get out. 2 cold words, hitting the ground. I stood frozen in place, looking at the pile of paper scraps on the floor, then looking again at the man who had picked up the document again. As if nothing had happened, a surge of wicked anger shot straight to his head. Fine, excellent, Shen Li, you've got guts. Tearing up my freedom, is that it? All right, we'll see about that. I was trembling with rage, shot a glare at the back of his head, and turned to leave. With a loud bang, I slammed the study door shut. The noise was so loud that probably the entire courtyard could hear it. The stone inkstone outside the door, his icy face completely cracked, staring at me in shock. I couldn't be bothered with him and stormed back to my courtyard in a huff. Chuanya was startled to see me return with a livid expression. Miss, what's wrong? Did the prince not agree? I agree my ass, I cursed angrily. He tore up the divorce agreement, and even threatened that even if I die, I'd still be his dead person. I'm so furious, Chuanya gasped sharply. Tore it up. The prince, how could he do such a thing? Who knows what's gotten into him? I gulped down a large mouthful of cold tea, unable to suppress the fire in my heart. His white moonlight has returned, so why is he still holding on to me? Keeping me around for the new year? No, I can't just sit here waiting for death. If this path doesn't work for Shen Li, then take another one. Even a salted fish has its temper. A cornered salted fish will flip over. Chuanya, your servant is here. Go. I slapped the table. Pack up all our private savings and the valuable, easily portable belongings. Bundle them up. Chuanya's eyes lit up. Miss, you've finally come to your senses. Are we running away? Run away. I snorted. You can run, but you can't hide. With just one word from Shen Li, the city gates would be shut. Where could the two of us possibly go? Then what do you mean? If he won't let me live in peace, then I won't let him have an easy time either. I narrowed my eyes. Doesn't he care about his white moonlight? Fine, I'll go meet this Miss Liu myself. Huh, Chuanya was stunned. You're going to find Miss Liu, but isn't that like walking right into a trap? What do you know? I revealed a profound smile. This is what you call saving the nation by a circuitous route. The news of Liu Shua's return to the capital spread quickly among the noblewomen's circles. Her father was a capable general under Shen Li's command and was transferred to Jiangnan a few years ago. Now that he has returned to the capital to report on his duties, she has come back with him. This Miss Liu is an important character in the original book. Gentle as water and exceptionally talented, she is the cherished white moonlight in Shen Li's heart. It was also one of the triggers that led to the original host's tragedy. Since Shen Li refuses to play by the rules, I have no choice but to start with this white moonlight. I found out that after Liu Shuai returned to the capital, she was staying at her aunt's house in the eastern part of the city. That afternoon, I deliberately chose a time when Shen Li was away at the military camp for roll call, taking Chun Ya with me and carrying 2 boxes of freshly steamed Osmanthus cakes, still warm. I paid a visit. Willow Catkin's aunt's family were also officials. After the gatekeeper announced us, we were quickly invited inside. We waited for a moment in the flower hall. A slender figure dressed in a pale yellow dress walked in gracefully, supported by her maid, Willow Catkin. It was exactly as described in the book. Her eyes were gentle, her skin as white as snow, and her movements were as graceful as a willow swaying in the wind, carrying the delicate beauty of the Jiangnan water towns. She seemed a bit surprised to see me, then offered a proper, slightly distant smile. Shua pays her respects to your highness, the princess consort. Her voice was soft and gentle. Miss Liu, there's no need for such formality. I quickly gestured for her to rise. offering what I thought was my kindest smile. I heard you had returned to the capital and have been meaning to visit. I hope you'll forgive my unannounced visit today, Your Highness. You flatter me. Liu Shuai sat down gracefully. May I ask what brings you here today? TSK, such a polite and distant opening. Let's get straight to the point. I wouldn't dare presume to offer guidance, I said, having Chun Ya open the food box. The sweet aroma of Osmanthus cakes immediately wafted out. I simply heard that Miss Liu has a fondness for sweets, so I specially brought some freshly made Osmanthus cakes. Liu Shuai glanced at them, her smile still perfectly polite. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, Your Highness. But she didn't touch them, obviously. She was very guarded. I didn't mind and picked up a piece myself. Taking a bite, so fragrant. Wouldn't you like to try some, Miss Liu? She hesitated for a moment, then still picked up a small piece and took a delicate bite. Indeed, it is sweet and delicious. Your Highness is very thoughtful. The atmosphere grew a bit awkward. No, I need to break the ice, Miss Liu. I set down the pastry, wiped my hands, and decided to get straight to the point. Actually, the reason I came today is to discuss a very important matter with you. Liu Shuai raised her eyes, her long lashes fluttering like butterfly wings. Your Highness, please speak. I know that you and the prince share a deep bond. I weighed my words carefully, trying to make my expression appear both sincere and pitiful. When I married into the prince's residence, it was truly out of helplessness. And it was not the prince's wish either. Liu Shuai's hand, holding the teacup, trembled almost imperceptibly. She remained silent. I continued, my tone tinged with a touch of melancholy and self-mockery. Over the past year, I've been well aware of how the prince has treated me. The title of princess is nothing but an empty shell. Now that you've returned, the prince's feelings, I'm sure you understand. I took a deep breath, as if having made up my mind, and looked directly at her. Miss Liu, the reason I came today is to ask you for a favor. Liu Shuai finally showed a slight reaction, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Beg me? Yes. I nodded firmly. I want to leave the prince's residence. I'd like to ask Miss Liu to help me. Liu Shuai was completely stunned. She probably never dreamed in her wildest dreams that I, the legitimate princess consort, would come begging her, the white moonlight, for help to leave. What does Your Highness mean by this? Shuai doesn't quite understand. She furrowed her delicate brows. It's simple. I lowered my voice. I know the prince only has you in his heart. As long as you speak to the prince and persuade him to agree to a divorce with me, I will disappear immediately and never be in your way again. This position of princess consort rightfully belongs to you. I stared into her eyes and presented the greatest temptation. As soon as I'm gone, Miss Liu, you can rightfully marry into the prince's mansion and become his legitimate princess consort. Isn't this what you've always wanted? The air fell silent. Liu Shuai looked at me, her glistening eyes swirling with emotion, surprise, confusion, scrutiny, and a hint of something complex I couldn't decipher. She remained silent for a long time, for so long that I thought she was moved. Finally, she gently set down the teacup, letting out a barely audible sigh. Then, she lifted her eyes and looked at me. That gaze was no longer the previous aloofness and formality. Instead, it carried a hint of pity and a trace of a strange smile. Your Highness, she spoke, her voice still soft, yet with a peculiar certainty. You've misunderstood. Misunderstood. My heart tightened. You've misunderstood His Highness. She gave a faint smile, in which there was a hint of helplessness and sympathy. You've also misunderstood the relationship between His Highness and me. What? I was dumbfounded. But isn't His Highness's heart? I stammered, at a loss for words. Liu Shuai gently shook her head, cutting me off. The prince does treat me somewhat differently. But it's not romantic affection, it's more out of regard for my father's friendship, and a bit of childhood camaraderie. She paused, looked into my eyes, and said word by word, moreover, Your Highness, I already have someone in my heart. What? I was completely dumbfounded. This plot has completely gone off the rails. You have someone in your heart? I stammered and asked. Willow Catkin's face flushed with 2 patches of red, and she nodded shyly. He is a merchant from Jiangnan, she said in an even softer voice. Yet it carried a hint of sweetness. This time I return to the capital to inform my father of my feelings and ask for his blessing. The information overload is frying my CPU. Shun-Li's first love already has someone in her heart, and he's a merchant. Then what about Shun-Li? What does that make him? But what about the prince? My mind was a tangled mess. Willow Catkin looked at my bewildered expression and sighed. Your Highness, some things may not be as they appear. She seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she didn't spell it out. As for your wish to dissolve the marriage, she shook her head. Forgive my bluntness, but I'm afraid it will be very difficult. His Highness, she weighed her words carefully, her expression somewhat complicated. He is not entirely indifferent toward you. The fact that he tore up your divorce agreement might not necessarily be a bad thing. Leaving the Liu residence, I felt as if I were floating, like walking on cotton. Liu Shui's words echoed repeatedly in my mind. Misunderstood. Does Shun-Li actually care about me a little? How could that be? But he clearly despises me so much. Every time he sees me, he either frowns or gives me a cold stare. He even tore up my divorce letter. Isn't this blatant disgust and confinement? Yet, the certainty and slight sympathy in Willow Catkin's eyes didn't seem fake. Could it be that Shun-Li? An absurd thought uncontrollably surfaced. I quickly shook my head, trying to shake off this terrifying thought. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Would someone as cold and aloof as Shun-Li ever like a slacker like me, unless the sun rises from the west? It must be Willow Catkin trying to comfort me with made-up words. Yes, that must be it. But that tiny bubble of doubt in my heart just wouldn't go away. The days that followed, I fell into an unprecedented state of inner conflict. On one side was Shun-Li's usual cold expression. He seemed to have completely forgotten about tearing up my freedom, still showing up in my courtyard every now and then. Sometimes it was during mealtime, other times when I was dozing off in the sun. He never said a word, just look at me. It sent chills down my spine. What's even more excessive is that once I was in the small kitchen experimenting with a new dish, deep-fried small dried fish. I ended up covered in oil fumes, with a smudge of soot on my face. Just as I came out carrying a plate of golden, crispy results, I ran into him. He looked at my disheveled state, his brows habitually furrowing again. I instinctively hid the plate behind my back, yet he reached out his hand. Hand it over. Tell you what, dried fish, he said succinctly. I hesitated for a moment, but still handed the plate over. He picked up a small dried fish and put it in his mouth, chewing it carefully. I watched him nervously. What would he say? Vulgar, unpresentable. He swallowed it, then he picked up another one. The taste is passable. Is that all? I'm a bit disappointed. Next time, use less salt, he added, and then took another one. What happened to passable? He leisurely finished the third one before setting down the plate and wiping his hands with a handkerchief. His gaze fell on my face. Your face is dirty. He pointed to his own cheek. I instinctively wiped it with the back of my hand. This side. He took a step closer. I switched to the other side to wipe. It didn't come off, he said in a low voice. Then, before I could even react, he raised his hand. His cool fingertips, slightly calloused, gently brushed across my cheek, moving as fast as the wind, wiped off that smudge of putty. I froze in place, as if struck by a pressure point. Where his fingertips brushed past felt like it was on fire. It's scalding hot. He withdrew his hand, his expression unchanged. As if that somewhat intimate gesture just now was merely my illusion. Be more careful next time. With those words, he turned and left, leaving me standing in the courtyard like a fool. My heart pounded like a drum. My face was so hot it could fry an egg. What on earth is going on? On the other side, the news of Liu Shui's return to the capital spread like wildfire. Those who were waiting to see me, their abandoned consort, become a laughingstock, began to stir restlessly. Especially some noble ladies who want to curry favor with the royal family. They probably think that with Liu Shui's return, my days as a nominal princess are numbered. As a result, invitations to various flower-viewing banquets, tea parties, and poetry clubs have been flying into my courtyard like snowflakes. They were never this enthusiastic before. The purpose goes without saying. They want to see me down and out, hoping to take the chance to kick me while I'm down. Just to show off in front of Liu Shui or Shun-Li. It's so annoying. I just want to lie flat and not get involved in their palace intrigue. I've turned down everything I could, but there was one event that couldn't be avoided, the birthday banquet of the old dowager of the Duke of Anghua's household, Shunli's mother. The current consort Shu and this old dowager were childhood friends. Shunli was definitely going to attend. As the nominal princess consort, I had to be present, there was no avoiding it. On the day of the birthday banquet, I was forced to get up early, had Chun Ya style my hair into a dignified, yet heavy, updo, and put on palace attire befitting my status as princess consort, yet restrictive. Following Shunli onto the carriage, the journey passed in silence. The atmosphere was so heavy you could wring water from it. Arriving at the Duke of An's residence, it was indeed a bustling scene with crowds of people and a profusion of flowers. The moment Shunli and I appeared, we instantly became the center of attention. All kinds of gazes, probing, curious, and gleefully malicious, swept over us in unison, especially when they saw Shunli's face, as cold and detached as ever, and the clear, unbridgeable distance between us. The schadenfreude in those looks was practically overflowing. Sister consort, you look particularly radiant today. A noble young lady dressed in peach-red robes, her face full of playful charm, approached. It was Li Jiaojiao, the daughter of the Vice Minister of War. While her words praised me, her eyes seemed glued to Shunli. Your Highness, I hope you are well. She greeted Shunli with a coquettish curtsy. Shunli didn't even lift his eyelids, merely responding with a cold hum. Li Jiaojiao had been gently rebuffed, and her face couldn't hide her embarrassment. She then turned to me with a smile and said, Sister, you're truly blessed to always be by the prince's side, unlike us, who find it so difficult to even catch a glimpse of the prince. Her words sounded like a compliment, but they were actually laced with sarcasm, implying that I was merely occupying the position without actually enjoying any favor. The noble young ladies nearby covered their mouths and chuckled softly. I couldn't be bothered to engage in her word games, so I responded with lazy indifference, quite fortunate indeed. If I can lie down, I'll never choose to sit. Li Jiaojiao was left speechless by my reply, clearly not expecting me to be so uncooperative. Her eyes darted around, and she spotted Liu Shua surrounded by several noblewomen not far away. Oh, isn't that Sister Liu? She deliberately raised her voice. Sister Liu has returned to the capital. How wonderful, Your Highness. You must be very pleased too, right? As soon as these words were spoken, all eyes turned in their direction. The atmosphere grew even more charged with theatrical anticipation. Shunli finally lifted his gaze, looking toward Liu Shua's direction. Willow Catkin also looked over, giving him a slight nod. Shunli also nodded in return. There did seem to be a certain familiarity between the two, but that was all there was to it. There was no deep gaze or sparks flying as everyone had anticipated. Li Jiaojiao, somewhat unwilling to give up, turned to me with a smile and said, Sister Princess Consort. Sister Liu has returned. You don't mind, do you? I heard that back then. What about back then? I interrupted her, smiling as I asked. Miss Li seems to know quite a bit about what happened back then. Li Jiaojiao was left speechless. Back then, the subtle, almost imperceptible affection between Shunli and Liu Shua was an open secret among everyone. But who would dare to speak of it openly? I only heard it through the grapevine, she said awkwardly. Things heard through the grapevine are better left unsaid, I continued with a smile, though my tone turned cold. Less trouble come from careless talk. Li Jiaojiao's face changed color, and she didn't dare to utter another word. The people around also quieted down a bit. At that moment, Liu Shua walked over. Your Highness. My prince, she curtsied gracefully. You needn't be so formal, Miss Liu. I nodded. Shunli merely responded indifferently. Liu Shua looked at me with a gentle smile. Just now, it seemed Your Highness was a bit displeased. Did Sister Jiaojiao say something unpleasant? She's young and doesn't know better, so please don't take it to heart. Her words not only helped me out of an awkward situation but also subtly put Li Jiaojiao in her place. Li Jiaojiao's face instantly flushed red. Liu Shua then turned to Shunli, her tone natural. Your Highness. I just heard from my aunt that the treasured painting Fishing Alone on the Cold River by the old matriarch seems to have gotten a bit damp. She would like to ask you to take a look and see if it can be restored. Shen-Li was skilled in the appreciation and restoration of calligraphy and painting, so this was a reasonable pretext. He nodded. All right. He glanced at me again, his eyes seeming to say, behave yourself. Then I followed the maid who was leading the way. Liu Shua smiled at me and said, Your Highness, shall I accompany you to the waterside pavilion? It's quieter over there. I was just thinking I didn't want to stay among this flock of chattering women, so this was exactly what I wanted. Sure, the waterside pavilion overlooked the lake and was indeed serene. After the maids served tea and snacks, Liu Shua had them withdraw. Only the two of us remained. Your Highness was quite imposing just now, Liu Shua said, taking a sip of tea with a smile. Imposing? I curled my lips self-deprecatingly. It was merely the fox borrowing the tiger's might. Without the prince standing by my side, they wouldn't have given me a second glance. Liu Shua chuckled softly. Your Highness is too modest. You handled the situation excellently. She paused, set down her teacup, and looked into my eyes. Your Highness, about what I said last time, have you given it any thought? I froze for a moment. I knew she was referring to the words about Shen-Li. I smiled bitterly. Miss Liu, it's not that I don't believe you, it's just, the prince, I recalled his perpetually icy expression, the fierceness with which he tore up the divorce papers, and his habit of suddenly appearing out of nowhere to startle me. From him, I truly can't see even the slightest sign of caring. Willow Catkin looked at my troubled expression, a hint of mischievous smile flashing in her eyes. Your Highness, you are too close to see the whole picture. His Highness has a cold temperament and is not good with words. There are some things he might not even understand himself, but as an outsider, I see things clearly. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. Did you know, when you first married into the prince's residence, you fell ill with a high fever that wouldn't subside? The prince stayed by your side all night and personally fed you the medicine. Ah, I was completely stunned. In the original host's memory, it seemed there was indeed such an incident, but at that time, she was burning with fever and in a daze, only remembering someone clumsily feeding her bitter medicine, choking her several times. She thought it was Chun Ya. Could it be Shen-Li? And also, Liu Shua continued to spill the beans. Last time when you were fishing by the garden pond, you know about that too? I asked in surprise. Yes, Willow Catkin nodded. After you were scolded by the prince. Were you so angry that you didn't go to the garden for several days in a row? That's right, I nodded, still feeling a bit upset when I remembered it. During those days you didn't go, the prince would stand by the pond every evening. Willow Catkin's eyes twinkled with deeper amusement. Later, he instructed Shiyang to quietly place several plump grass carp in an inconspicuous corner of the pond. I nearly spat out my tea. Oh really? Absolutely true. Liu Shua held back a laugh. Shiyang personally told the steward from my aunt's family that their prince, well, is a bit strange. My expression probably looked like a cracked dried salted fish. Shen-Li, he actually, an indescribable feeling, from the deepest part of her heart, quietly and uncontrollably, began to surface. It was a little sour, a bit risque, and a little itchy, like being gently tickled by a feather. So, Your Highness, Liu Shua said earnestly, tearing up the divorce papers might not be a bad thing, perhaps. His Highness has finally come to his senses. The latter half of the birthday banquet left me feeling completely dazed. Liu Shua's words kept echoing in my mind like a haunting spell, feeding medicine during a high fever, sneakily releasing the grass carp, and tearing up the divorce papers. Could it be that I misunderstood him all along? Beneath that icy exterior, were there other intentions? Once this thought took root, it became impossible to suppress. I began to look at Shen-Li with a complicated expression, inquiry, confusion, and a trace of attention I was unwilling to admit. He seemed to notice my gaze. Occasionally, he would glance back at me. His eyes remained deep and inscrutable, but it seemed, perhaps, not as cold as before. After the birthday banquet, in the carriage on the way back to the residence, the atmosphere was even more peculiar than on the way there. I sat up straight, eyes fixed on my nose focused on my heart, pretending to watch the scenery outside the window, yet my heart was beating a little too fast. Two little figures in my mind were fiercely fighting. One said, "Don't believe it, it's all nonsense made up by Willow Catkin." How could Shenli possibly like you? He clearly despises you for gnawing on chicken feet and fishing. Another one said, but the things about feeding medicine and releasing the fish seem to be true, and just now at the birthday banquet, he seemed to be secretly looking at you. Had enough. A low voice suddenly broke the silence in the quiet carriage. It startled me. I turned my head abruptly and met Shenli's gaze. He had stopped looking at the book in his hand at some point and was now quietly watching me. His gaze was a bit intense. I wasn't looking at you, I instinctively retorted, my face feeling a little warm. Oh, he raised an eyebrow slightly, seemingly with a hint of teasing. Then what were you looking at? Are there flowers on the car window? I'm looking at the scenery. Is that not allowed? I was a bit flustered and angry. The corner of his mouth seemed to curve upward ever so slightly. It was so quick it felt like an illusion. Was the scenery nice? Good looking? Much better looking than some ice-cold faces? I retorted angrily. I regretted it as soon as I said it. We're done for. How did I say what was in my heart out loud? I nervously stole a glance at him, afraid he would turn cold-faced the next second. However, he didn't. Looking at my puffed-up, angry expression, deep in his eyes, it seemed, a faint trace of a smile flickered. He didn't say anything more. Picking up the book scroll again, the carriage fell silent once more, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. This faint, ambiguous tension left me restless and uneasy. No, I had to do something. We must break this deadlock. The second rule of being a salted fish, when faced with an uncontrollable situation, take the initiative and create chaos. So, a bold and reckless plan gradually took shape in my mind. Since Shenli's attitude is ambiguous, since the path to a divorce letter is temporarily blocked, then why not? I'll go all out, make him utterly disgusted with me, disgusted enough to have to kick me out. What's the plan then? It's simple. I'm going to pretend to be pregnant, and make sure it becomes a huge scandal, known to everyone. Just imagine, an unfavored princess consort suddenly being exposed as pregnant with a bastard child. This would be an utter humiliation for the royal family and for Shenli. No matter how much he can endure, he absolutely cannot stand this. When the time comes, I won't even need to ask for a divorce. He'll definitely take the initiative to write a letter of divorce and kick me out of the royal mansion. Perfect. Although this move is a bit ruthless and somewhat damaging to my reputation, but for the sake of freedom, I'm going all in. Once we leave the capital, the sky is high and the emperor is far away. Who would recognize us anyway? Perfect plan. Let's get to it. Step 1. Create the pregnancy look. I started experiencing morning sickness in the prince's mansion. During breakfast, as soon as I smelled the porridge, I covered my mouth and retched. Ugh, the sound was just loud enough for the maidservant waiting nearby to hear. Your Highness, what's wrong with you? Chun Ya was very quick on the uptake and immediately exclaimed in a fitting manner, Nothing. I waved my hand weakly. Perhaps, I caught a chill last night. For several days in a row, my appetite became picky. The braised pork hocks and roasted chicken I used to love now make me feel nauseous at the very sight. Instead, I've developed a particular fondness for sour plums and green apricots. I often send Chuanya to the kitchen to fetch sour plum soup for me. Step 2. Bribe the witnesses. I found an opportunity to slip out of the mansion, avoiding Shenli's watchful eyes. I went to a clinic far away from the prince's residence. I gave the old physician in the clinic a generous sum of silver. Doctor, do you think this might be a sign of pregnancy? I pretended to extend my wrist, putting on a show of bashfulness and nervousness. The old doctor accepted the money and understood the situation perfectly. He went through the motions of checking her pulse, then stroked his beard with an air of certainty. Congratulations, madam, my sincerest congratulations. It is indeed a pregnancy pulse. You've been with child for over a month now. Done. Step 3. Spread the good news. I didn't tell Shenli directly. Instead, I deliberately accidentally let it slip in front of the servants in the prince's mansion. Chuanya, do you think, when one is with child, should they make a few more loose-fitting clothes? Your Highness, keep your voice down. Chuanya panicked and reminded me. What are you afraid of? There are no outsiders here, I said coquettishly. The news spread like wildfire. The princess is with child. This explosive news spread throughout the entire royal residence at an astonishing speed. It naturally reached Shunli's ears as well. That evening, I had just finished mourning sickness and was leaning on the soft couch, happily eating the crystal grapes peeled by Chun-Ya, so sweet. Shun-Li rushed in like a gust of wind carrying a chill. His face was as dark as if it could drip with water. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, fixed intently on me. "Everyone, out!" He let out a low, commanding shout. Carrying an undeniable authority, Chuanya and the other maids trembled in fear, hastily retreating and closing the door behind them. The room was now just the two of us. The air instantly solidified. It was filled with the dangerous atmosphere of an impending storm. Your Highness," I looked at him timidly, doing my best to play the part of a guilty and frightened pregnant woman. He approached step by step. A tall figure cast a heavy shadow, completely enveloping me. Each step felt like it was treading on the tip of my heart. The sense of oppression was overwhelming. "You," he began, his voice hoarse and strained, as if forced from the depths of his throat, "are pregnant. Here it comes. The main event is here." I lowered my head, my hands restlessly twisting the hem of my clothes, my voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. "It was the doctor who said it. It's been over a month now." "Ha!" He let out a short, cold laugh. That laughter sent chills down my spine. "Whose child? Here it comes. The fatal question." I abruptly raised my head, my eyes quickly welling up with tears of humiliation and anger, painstakingly blinked into existence. "My lord, what do you mean by this? What do I mean?" He leaned down, placing his hands on the armrests of the soft couch on either side of me, trapping me between him and the couch. He was so close that I could clearly see the surging fury in his eyes and a trace of unbelievable pain staring into my eyes. He spoke word by word, as if laced with ice. "Wan Tang, I ask you, whose child is this?" His breath brushed against my face, carrying a scorching heat. I was startled by the complex emotions in his eyes. It wasn't just anger. "It seems there's something else. But now the arrow is on the string, it has to be released." I steeled myself, met his gaze, and with a "let the chips fall where they may" kind of resolve. "Does it matter who it belongs to, anyway? It's certainly not yours, Your Highness. You know it well, Your Highness. Since I married into this household, you haven't even stepped over the threshold of my courtyard more than a few times. This child is mine alone. Rest assured, Your Highness, once the child is born, I will leave with him immediately. I will never tarnish the reputation of your royal mansion." I screamed until my voice grew hoarse, tears perfectly rolling down my cheeks. This time, I was genuinely crying from the embarrassment of my own shrewish acting. But inside, my heart was pounding like a drum. Get angry, get furious, write the letter of divorce. However, the anticipated thunderous rage did not descend. After listening to my impassioned speech, the fury and gloom on Shunli's face actually faded away bit by bit. It was replaced by an extremely peculiar expression, as if he wanted to laugh but was trying hard to hold it back. He took a deep breath. He straightened his posture, looking down at me from above. His gaze was as sharp as an X-ray, seemingly able to see right through me. It sent chills down my spine. 1 month, he repeated. "Why yes," I replied with a hint of uncertainty. He suddenly twitched the corner of his mouth. That smile was icy and carried a hint of mockery. "Wan Tang," he said slowly, "I remember very clearly, on the 7th day of last month. I left the capital to inspect the Western Mountain camp. On the evening of the 8th, I returned to the manor early without alerting anyone. My heart suddenly skipped a beat, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The moonlight was particularly beautiful that night," he continued, his gaze fixed intently on me. "As I passed by your courtyard, I heard the sound of water inside. My face instantly turned pale. This is bad. Barbecued. I remember now, it was the night of the 8th day of last month. That day, I complained about the heat and thought the prince's mansion was heavily guarded, with no outsiders in my own courtyard, just in that small open-air hot spring pool in the corner of the yard. Took a bath. Could it be, out of curiosity, I leaped onto the wall and took a glance. Shunli's voice was deep and clear, carrying a barely noticeable hoarseness. I saw." He deliberately paused. My face was already flushed crimson, as if about to drip blood. I wished I could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. I only see you, princess, don't say it, I screamed, covering my ears, burning with shame and fury. So, he leaned down, his warm breath brushing against my sensitive ear, his voice carrying a kind of gritted teeth pleasure. You tell me, the child conceived over a month ago, whose could it be, if not mine? Boom. I feel as if I've been struck by lightning. I'm numb from head to toe, my mind has gone completely blank. Only his words, who else could it be but me, are echoing madly in my head, my carefully planned fake pregnancy drama. Not only did it not anger him into writing a letter of divorce, instead, it confirmed that he and I really did that. This is a huge misunderstanding. I opened my mouth like a fish out of water, unable to form a complete sentence for the longest time. So embarrassing, so mortifying, and a panic of being completely stripped bare. What? No more excuses. Shun-Li straightened up, looking at me with leisurely composure, the mockery in his eyes almost overflowing. Or has the princess consort finally remembered what happened that night? I don't remember anything. I was so angry and embarrassed that I grabbed the soft pillow beside me and threw it at him. Shun-Li, you scoundrel, you spied on me while I was bathing. You took advantage of me. He easily caught the soft pillow and tossed it aside. Peeking, he raised an eyebrow. I'm in my own residence, looking at my own wife. What's wrong with that? As for taking advantage of someone, he took a step forward, trapping me once again in that small space, his gaze growing deep and intense. That night, it was you, my wife, who, don't say it, I shrieked again, reaching out to cover his mouth. He grabbed my wrist. The force wasn't heavy, but it carried an unyielding dominance. His palm was scorching hot, so hot it made my heart tremble. Wan-Tang, he called my name. His voice low and hoarse, carrying a strange allure. Had enough of this tantrum. My heart fluttered under his gaze, and I struggled to pull my hand back. Who's throwing a tantrum? Let go of me. Not a tantrum. Not only did he not let go, but he tightened his grip instead, his other hand lifted, gently pinching my chin, forcing me to look up at him, feigning illness, pretending to be pregnant, spreading rumors, tarnishing your own reputation, and even trying to pin this mess on me. With every word he spoke, my confidence waned a little more. By the end, I was almost shrinking into myself. Wan-Tang, he stared into my eyes, asking word by word, do you want to leave me that badly? His gaze was too intense, as if it wanted to swallow me whole. With a kind of stubbornness I had never seen before, and a hint of hurt, my heart felt as if it had been struck hard by something, sore and swollen. I opened my mouth, but didn't know how to respond. Answer me. He moved closer. Our breaths mingling. Yes, driven to desperation, I decided to throw caution to the wind and shouted with my neck stiffened. I want to leave. I don't want to be this in name only. I don't want to face your cold expression every day. I don't want to be trapped in this gilded cage. I want to live a free and unrestrained life. Is that wrong? I yelled until tears streamed down my face. I roared out all the grievances, frustrations, and resentments that had been pent up for a year. After roaring, I gasped for breath, my chest heaving violently, like a cat with its fur puffed up. I glared at him with reddened eyes. Shun-Li fell silent. He looked at me, looking at my reddened eyes and stubborn expression. The fingers pinching my chin loosened their grip slightly. The sharpness and pressure in his gaze gradually faded away, replaced by a profound, complex emotion I couldn't understand. There was helplessness, frustration, and, perhaps even heartache. He released his grip on me, raising a hand. He clumsily wiped away the tears that had spilled from the corner of my eye with his fingertips. The motion was light, with a kind of cautious tenderness. Freedom, he murmured the word.
The princess. It's not an emergency illness, but a joyful pulse. The pulse is smooth and round like a pearl, flowing freely and strong under the finger. It is undoubtedly a slippery pulse. Her Highness is already more than a month pregnant. Boom, a thunderclap from a clear sky. This time, it's for real. It struck both Shun-Li and me, leaving us petrified on the spot. Me, Shun-Li, you, what did you say? Shun-Li's voice cracked as he grabbed the physician's arm. Say that again, Your Highness. It's absolutely true. The physician was startled by his reaction but remained certain. The princess consort is indeed with child. I have practiced medicine for decades and could never misdiagnose such a thing. Shenli abruptly turned to look at me. That gaze of his was indescribably complex, shocked, ecstatic, unbelievable, and a hint of lingering fear and relief. And only one thought remained in my mind. This is bad. Barbecue is really burnt. Fake it till you make it, now. There's really no escape. The princess of the royal mansion is pregnant. This is truly a momentous occasion. The news spread like wildfire, instantly reaching every corner of the capital. Rewards from the imperial palace were carried into the prince's mansion in an endless stream. Consort Shu was so overjoyed that she personally left the palace to see me, holding my hand with a beaming smile that she couldn't contain. Good child, we've finally been waiting for this. I always said that Li's icy temperament could only be tamed by you, Shenli. It was as if he had completely become a different person. That perpetually icy face had completely melted away. The corners of his mouth kept curling up from time to time. The look in his eyes is so gentle it could drip with tenderness, and with a hint of foolishness. He strictly forbids me from experimenting in the small kitchen again. Fishing, don't even think about it. 8 additional guards were stationed by the pond, maintaining strict vigilance. Every day, the kitchen prepares different kinds of tonics for me. Bird's nest, donkey hide gelatin, ginseng chicken soup. I'm almost sick of drinking them. The most outrageous thing is, he actually moved back to the main residence. Under the pretense of taking care of the princess and the young heir. I protested, Your Highness, you are busy with state affairs. It's better to. It's fine, he interrupted me. Speaking with confidence, I have already requested leave from His Majesty. Accompanying my consort during her pregnancy is also an important matter. So, my leisurely life had come to a complete end. Every day, I was under his supervision. I couldn't take walks for more than half an hour. You can't read for more than half an hour, to avoid straining your eyes. Even my favorite snacks are strictly controlled. Wonton, this is too cold. You can't eat it. Wonton, this is too sweet. It's bad for your teeth. Wonton, this is too greasy. Shenli, I finally exploded, slamming the half-eaten sour-dried apricot in my hand onto the table. Enough, I'm pregnant, not in prison. He looked at my furious state, neither angry nor annoyed. Instead, he walked over, picked up a clean handkerchief, and carefully wiped the powdered sugar from the corner of my mouth. His movements were incredibly gentle. The imperial physician said the first 3 months are the most critical. He murmured in a low voice, coaxing, be good and bear with it a little longer. Once this period passes, whatever you want to eat, I will personally go and buy it for you. He was very close. His refreshing, pleasant scent enveloped me. His voice was so deep and captivating. I actually, so shamelessly, blushed, my arrogance instantly deflated by half. Then I want to eat the braised pork knuckle from Granny Wang's shop on East Street. I muttered softly. All right, he agreed readily. I also want to eat the sugar-roasted chestnuts from Zhong's shop in the West Market. Okay, and one more thing. I counted on my fingers. He listened with a smile, his eyes full of adoration. As you wish. Who could resist this? The icy prince suddenly turns into a gentle, loyal dog. This contrast is so endearing. This lazy fish of mine seems a little charmed. No, Wonton, you need to sober up. Don't be corrupted by sugar-coated bullets. Freedom is the most important thing. Although, that letter of divorce, I secretly tucked it away at the bottom of the chest. I never took it out again. One afternoon, the sunlight was warm and cozy. I was drowsing on the soft couch. Shenli sat beside me, quietly reading a scroll. All was tranquil in this fleeting moment. Shenli, I murmured groggily. He set down the book and looked at me. That day, the fake pregnancy, I hesitated, but still asked, did you really think at the time that you were carrying someone else's child? He finished for me. Yeah. I nodded, not quite daring to look at him. He remained silent for a moment. Yes, he admitted. My heart tightened. Then, why did you later give me a letter of divorce? He reached out and gently covered my still flat stomach. His movements were tender and careful, because compared to losing you, he looked at me, his gaze deep and sincere. I fear more, trapping you and making you resent me for a lifetime. Wonton, he whispered, that time I tore up the divorce letter, it was my selfishness. But this time, I've come to understand, if you truly have someone else in your heart, and carry his child. His voice was strained, yet resolute. I will let you go, but fortunately, his hand resting on my lower abdomen tightened slightly. Fortunately, she, is mine. His gaze was incredibly gentle. Unfortunately, you're still here. I looked at him, looking at this man who was once as cold as a stone but is now unbelievably gentle. A certain hardened place in my heart completely collapsed. Shun Li, that letter of divorce, tore it up. He said it simply and decisively. Why? I widened my eyes in surprise. He leaned in, his forehead gently pressing against mine. Our noses touched, breaths mingled, because his voice carried a hint of laughter, along with an undeniable domineering tone. This prince has changed his mind. Who said anything about divorcing you? He gently kissed my forehead. I want to be entangled with you. For a lifetime.